Welcome back to Girls on Deck, everyone. I've missed you guys the past couple weeks, but my name is Kayla Birch, and with me as always today is my co-host Hannah Jo Groves. As the season comes to a close, we'll be talking underrated and overrated teams and players for the NFL and NBA. We'll also get to go over Sunday night's NFL game with Jeff Laux, and Cameron Forcier will be here to talk NBA with us. It's going to be a great show, so stay with us. Girls on Deck starts now.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated chance, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in, I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
Welcome back, everyone. We've got Cameron Forcier joining us to start off our show, talking some NBA, and this is his first time on our show, but not his first time on air. And fun fact, he's actually run teleprompter for our show a few times, but now he's here on the set with us, and we're excited about it. Cameron, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. All my teams have won this weekend, so it makes Monday sting a little less. I'm excited for today. I'm excited to be on the show and be the only guest on Girls on Deck who has every take objectively correct.
Oof, objectively.
All right, well, Hannah and Joe and I are really excited to hear your picks for overrated and underrated teams for the NBA. So let's get started with overrated. Who do you have?
I have the New York Knicks.
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, Alex. I know it's your birthday, but I am gonna be talking down on your team. I don't think they're sustainable at all.
Bing bong.
Yeah.
Bing bong.
Ooh. Well, yeah, Alex Funderburke is in the studio today. It's his birthday. He's the mayor of UTEP, and after his Yankees lost the lead up to the World Series, he said that he was like, oh, well, you know what? The Knicks are going to be good, and he was wrong. But anyway, let's talk about these Knicks here. Didn't people kind of already know they weren't going to be that good, Cameron?
I mean, they showed up last year. The East was very top-heavy. I believe they were the 4 seed or they were the 5 seed. They lost in the first round to the Hawks. They started out good, but just over the past 10 games, they really struggled. I don't believe that they have what it takes to continue. They have one of the weakest strength of schedules, and they have been struggling. They have really bad losses. They've lost to Orlando twice. They have beaten the Bulls twice, but overall, defensively, they're very weak.
Well, we'll get to the Bulls in a second. Do you think Walker is underperforming for the Knicks?
I think Kemba Walker is probably the worst player on the team as far as someone who gets minutes. His net rating is atrocious. Per 100 possessions, he has a negative 12.8 net rating, which essentially means that he is contributing negative points to his team.
Now, do you think it's the Knicks just this year, or is it the franchise as a whole?
They did good last year. They hired Tom Thibodeau. Signing Kemba Walker was kind of what they wanted to do. He was one of the big name point guards. Derrick Rose off the bench has been phenomenal. It's just simply this year they have not been good defensively, and it's just Julius Randle is trying his best to carry that team, but he can't do it all by himself.
I'm laughing because Alex is behind the camera upset with my comment. But Hannah, Joe, I want to know, who do you have for overrated?
Well, Kayla, I think you would agree with me here. I've got the Lakers. So while LeBron was hurt for the past 2 weeks, AD was trying to carry the team, and I agree that he's the talented guy. Some people think he's even better than LeBron, but he couldn't carry it without LeBron. I mean, he really struggled. And they've got Russell Westbrook now. I don't know if he's meshing super well. Cameron, you'll have to tell us what you think about that. But they've only got 3 players from last season's team. 14 of the Lakers athletes are new, and they've also got the oldest average. Their average player is 30 years old, and that's the oldest in the league. They're ranked 8th in the Western Conference. And yeah, I don't know. What do you think about AD, Cameron?
Anthony Davis is good, but obviously he is kind of fragile. He does have some health concerns. I think where the Lakers really took a massive step back last year is they lost their depth. They did get Malik Monk and Horton Tucker, who they re-signed, but they did get rid of they did get rid of Caruso, and they did just lose so many of their bench pieces that were shooters that made LeBron who he is. Because now that LeBron is aging, he's becoming more of a playmaker, and losing a 3-and-D player like Kentavious Caldwell-Pope really hurts them.
Kayla, what do you think about this Lakers team?
Yeah, I agree that they're overrated. I just don't think they're what they're used to be, and I still think that people give them way too much credit for how they are playing. They're 8th in the Western Conference Finals, the Western Conference. I don't think they're a team to talk about anymore, really. But let's go into underrated. Cameron, who do you feel that is?
For most underrated team, I'm definitely going with the Philadelphia 76ers, completely ignoring the whole Ben Simmons drama, which has overshadowed them and kind of not put their performance into the limelight.
Yeah.
They started off 7-2 with Joel Embiid, and then now that Joel Embiid and Matisse Thybulle have missed time with COVID, they also had an issue with Tobias Harris missing times. They have really struggled. As far as offensively, they are still one of the top offensive teams by all advanced stats. Where they really struggle is defense. They're 23rd in defensive net rating, and they are the worst team in the NBA with rebound percentage, which once Joel Embiid comes back, who is an MVP caliber player, obviously he finished second last year, that will help their interior presence and just all around space the floor. Tyrese Maxey and Seth Curry have both been crazy while Joel Embiid is out. Tyrese Maxey leads the team in points and assists.
Okay, well, I know you want to ignore the Ben Simmons situation, but I feel like that's impossible because when something like that happens, I feel like your morale just goes down. Do you feel like that's affected them too?
I feel like it could have been, but I would like to point to the side. I like to put it aside just simply because we do not know when Ben Simmons is going to come back.
Right.
It looks as if they are not going to move Ben Simmons anytime soon. He very simply might not play this season or for as long as his contract. Mowery, their GM seems to be dead set on he is not getting out unless we get a star in return. And that is one of the reasons why I think they're so underrated is because so many people talk about the Ben Simmons drama is that they're ignoring the fact that they had the best record in the East before Joel Embiid went out with COVID.
I'll give it to you that it's surprising that they've done okay without Ben Simmons because, I mean, if he was playing well without all of this issues of being afraid to touch the ball, he would be a great asset for them. And so even though he's not there, they're doing maybe better than people would have expected.
Hannah Jo, I want to throw it to you before we move on. Who is your underrated team?
My underrated team is the Chicago Bulls. So, of course, DeMar DeRozan is just amazing. They've built their team around him, and he's super efficient. He averages something like 26 points per game or something like that. They had LaVine, who's really good, but that was kind of the only really strong player that they had. They didn't really have any other big guys, and they had him since 2017, so it's been a while. But now they've got Rosen and some other guys. People didn't know how the Bulls would perform going into the season, but they've definitely proven themselves. They've added Alex Caruso, and they've taken the defense to another level, and they're now the first in the East, record 12-5. Cameron, what do you think about this Bulls team?
I think that going into the season, the Bulls were projected by many to be a 6 or 7 seed, and they have far exceeded the expectations. But if you look at them on paper right now, all they were really missing last year was the defense. They had Zach LaVine, who was an all-star, incredible scorer, gifted talent. They traded for Vucevic from the Magic, who can space the floor. He's a very good offensive center. I believe he's underrated because he was stuck in Orlando. And then they added Lonzo Ball, who is a phenomenal playmaker. He works with Zach LaVine because he can run the floor. He's a great defender. And then DeMar DeRozan is also a phenomenal defender, and he has averaged 20 points per game every season for the last 8. He might have been stuck in San Antonio, away from the big market, away from media, kind of ignored, but he still averaged 20-plus points on the most efficient two-point percentage of his career. He shoots almost 60% from inside the arc, and he limited his three-point shooting with under 1 3-point per game.
Well, yeah, just to go off of that, DeMar DeRozan scored the most points in franchise history in his first 16 games. So he's an absolutely phenomenal player for them. Now, before we end this NBA segment, I feel like we have to talk about the LeBron and Isaiah Stewart debacle last night. LeBron accidentally maybe elbowed him, and it caused a riot. Isaiah Stewart was not having it and went after LeBron multiple times, knocking people down in the way. Hannah Jo, what did you think of it?
I couldn't, there were great actors in the situation because I came in the studio today being like, guys, it was an accident. LeBron didn't mean to. The way he reacted, come on, he was like, oh, I'm sorry. No, I was convinced that now it's not an accident. The way that he did it, the way his elbow is one thing, but then his hand is another thing. And then we also have Isaiah multiple times convincing the people that are holding him back that he's good. I'm good. And then he tries again. Multiple times. Cameron, what did you think about this last night?
It was definitely interesting. Obviously, Detroit has had a history with having the bad boy reputation, and then the 2004 era of hard-nosed basketball.
Yes.
And leading up to the Malice at the Palace, which I believe is the anniversary is coming up this week. So there's definitely some sort of Detroit brand with that. But Isaiah Stewart was not happy. He had to get 5 stitches. His face was bloodied. Like you said, he said, "Oh, I'm fine, I'm fine," and then he would rush right back at them. He actually ran into the tunnels, and the Lakers security had to like block off the tunnel that led to the Lakers locker room because they thought he was going to stay there and wait for LeBron James.
That's ridiculous.
It's funny too because the last time there was a fight even remotely that big was in 2004 with the Pistons. So something in that team is a very heated.
Yeah, definitely.
passionate.
The frustration. Yeah, definitely. Okay, before we move on though, I hear you really like a certain Cavs player, Cameron.
Yes.
I think you have you have a doll
Yes.
of this player. Do you want to tell us about that?
I'm quite literally the biggest Ricky Rubio fan you will ever meet. He was my favorite team was the Timberwolves. We have been bad for the entire duration of our franchise history. We were drafted Ricky Rubio in 2009, and somehow, some way, I just got attached to him, and he's lighting it up. He's doing good. Well, not lighting it up because he doesn't score, but he dropped 37 on the terribly defensed Knicks, and for that, I thank him.
Poor Alex. Okay.
Poor Alex.
What about the Sexton injury though? How's that going to affect them?
So Cleveland's issue the past few years was that they did draft Colin Sexton and Darius Garland, 2 players of the same mold. They're slightly undersized guards back-to-back years in the first round. So the whole question was, how are they going to fit? How are they going to fit? Now that both of their rookie contracts are coming to an end, the whole question was, which one are they going to stick with? And with Colin Sexton performing well and then tearing his meniscus out for the season, I think that can either get Cleveland to pay him a little less or even not find a way to move him. You don't know.
What do they do now without him?
Darius Garland is going to be stepping up. Evan Mobley is he was out for 2 weeks with an injury, and he's a leading Rookie of the Year odds. He's been phenomenal. Jarrett Allen is putting up career highs in rebounds and points. So they are, I don't want to say they're fine without him, but they do have the next man up mentality of Cedi Osman, Isaac Okoro. They have the young team who can play defense, they can spread the ball, they can shoot, I was between them and the Sixers for my underrated picks simply because everyone is like, oh, Cleveland, they're not good, but they are 9-9 and dead center.
Well, I don't want to cut you off, but that is about all the time we have for NBA. Thank you so much for joining us, Cameron, and stay with us for NFL talk when we come back.
Why? Because I am a New York Giants fan, and I want my first pick of the week to be my team. I see an upset for the New York Giants this Sunday. Bet your entire savings, and I'm telling you right now, they're gonna win. I don't care what you say. It's gonna happen.
I'm going to go Yankees 4-1. I think Garrett Cole's going to give them 7 shutout. It's Garrett Cole. I trust him in this type of situation.
2-1 pitch.
The Yankees lost to Boston in the wild card game, and I told Johnny if my boys lose, I'd come on the show in this.
I had to go with the Raiders, I think, for this one. I don't see them losing.
Welcome back. It is now time for our primetime picks of the week, the best segment. I'm currently doing awful, standing at 16-10, Oklahoma State and Texas. I'm going Texas 35-27.
UCF keeps the 30 points per game streak alive. I'm going to go 35-10. UCF wins.
Hey there, everyone, and welcome back. Kayla, I forgot to say this last time, but I've missed you. It's been 2 weeks since we've done our show together.
I know, I've missed you too, but I'm really glad to be back with our good friend Jeff Laux to talk NFL. Jeff, how are you feeling today?
You know, I'm feeling great. I'm just glad we didn't tie the Detroit Lions this weekend.
Oh.
We'll get into that a little later, Jeff.
Well, we're glad to have you too, Jeff. Let's jump right into Sunday night's game where we saw the Steelers go up against the Chargers, the Steelers that did tie the Lions, by the way. It looked to me like right off the bat, it was the Austin Eckler show. After a 73-yard drive, Eckler carefully but quickly found his way to the end zone for the first touchdown of the game. Then, in the second quarter, Justin Herbert found Eckler again after getting out of Steelers pressure. That made 2 touchdowns, both by Eckler, and only a field goal on the board at this point for the Steelers. But the Steelers didn't let it get to halftime before scoring a TD of their own, with Deontay Johnson catching a 10-yard pass from Big Ben. But after halftime, the Chargers asserted their dominance again with, you guessed it, Eckler, being clever and crafty as he evaded the Steelers' defense and ran it into the end zone for his 3rd touchdown of the night, and that wouldn't even be his last. Now, though the Steelers caught up by crunch time and made it seem like they could win it, the Chargers came out on top in the end, winning the game 41-37. Jeff, I can't help but think that this might have been a little different for our guy Justin Herbert if TJ Watt were able to play in Sunday night's game. What do you think about that?
I mean, you have to go back to watching them play the Seahawks earlier this season. The Seahawks had the win, but then TJ Watt said, I'm going to assert my dominance and take over the game like the defensive player of the year I am. And, you know, TJ Watt is just an absolute generational player because he makes everybody have to chip block him, and he barely gets chip blocked because he's just too fast off the edge. And I believe that the Chargers would have had a way more difficult time driving down at the end there and scoring with him rushing at Justin Herbert and putting all that pressure on him with Cameron Hayward, because Cameron Hayward times TJ Watt is an indestructible duo I've seen too many times dominate my team.
Oh, yeah. Well, and I want to talk about Hayward because he threw some hands with Herbert and some other people. But anyway, Kayla, what did you think about Herbert's performance without the intimidation of TJ Watt there?
I mean, I think he did phenomenal. He proves time and time again what a star young quarterback he is, and I still think he has so much growth to do. I mean, in that game alone, he made NFL history with the first quarterback to throw for 382 yards and run for 90 yards. He's that type of player, and I think, again, he still has a lot to grow. I don't know that it would have been different necessarily if TJ Watt had been in. It very well could have, but the game was so close, I really don't think it would have been that easy to tell. Yeah, for sure. And he showed us that he's good with pressure. I mean, TJ Watt is a different kind of pressure, but he's still good under pressure. And he just impresses me so much, Justin Herbert. I mean, we've said time and time again on the show, he is that guy. He leads the defense with his head. You know, he can be looking one way, his eyes are another way, the defense are watching his head, obviously, but then he can throw to the other side. He is an athlete. They made a point on the broadcast that I was watching last night to say he didn't get to go to football camps because he was in baseball camps, in basketball camps. He is an all-around athlete, and I think he uses that to his advantage. But Jeff, what did you think about, like, what adjustments do the Steelers need to make in order to win against the Bengals?
So the Bengals are a wild card team. They can come at you and play excellent, or they can come at you and be super flawed. So the thing about the Steelers is last night just being over aggressive. When they had the trend in the game going in the direction, they had the lead, and then they bit on a route, and Mike Williams ended up making them pay. And that's the great thing. I'm gonna go back to you, Hannah, on it. Is Justin Herbert is such an elite presence already. Like, the Chargers have been known for blowing leads and giving them back, and the terrible towels were going everywhere last night. The whole place was filled with yellow towels, and I can imagine playing a home game against an away team. The whole stadium is rooting against me.
Crazy.
So seeing him lead his team down the field and, you know, overturn that trend for the Chargers, it's just really special to see, and I'm happy for him. I wish I had Justin Herbert.
Yeah. Well, so briefly, Hayward, okay, so there was a play, it was in the fourth quarter, I think. Justin Herbert runs, and then Hayward, because 2 of his other defenders bump into each other and they're on the ground. Hayward is running with all of his might because he's a big guy. He's not used to that kind of, but he catches Herbert somehow, holds him to the ground, and then when his teammate, I think it was Palmer, comes over, he punches him. And not only does he punch Palmer, but he punches Justin Herbert. What was Hayward doing?
So I honestly, I looked at the interview, and Hayward said he wished he could have said something to Justin Herbert after the play happened.
Bad?
But he said he had his hand stuck under Herbert. I'm gonna go with the notion it was a dirty play. Cameron Hayward is known for being dirty, and he's an excellent player. But the Steelers have a dirty mindset, and it possibly is a mistake, but it looked pretty vicious, and I did not see his hand get caught under. Like you said, Palmer came over, and he kind of gave him the hand, and then he went back down and gave him another fistful in the stomach. I'm like, man, he's already down. What are you doing?
Yeah, I was like, why are you punching Justin? Anyway, sorry. I thought that was so weird.
But I want to move on to some overrated and underrated players in the NFL. And Jeff, since you're our guest, I'll let you go first. Give us your most underrated player in the NFL right now.
So So I had the privilege of watching my Brownies get tormented by this guy, Mr. Matthew Judon, for multiple years now. You know, coming over from the Ravens, you know, he put in the Bean Baker in our division, and now, you know, in Foxborough, he's in the perfect system to succeed. Matt Judon is like he's the third in sacks in the league right now, second in QB pressures, and he's third in team total tackles, and he's all over the field. They're not just putting him in as a defensive end role or a linebacker role. He's so versatile that you have to put 3 men on him because, you know, if you don't, Baker's going to be on the ground. Mac Jones is just so good right now in his offensive role that when the defense is rolling with Matt Judon getting all these sacks, their team is looking indestructible, and it's scary because Bill Belichick knows what he's doing. His game plan is always, you know, make the quarterback uncomfortable, and, you know, he overload blitz all the time. And when you get that hit on that quarterback and make him uncomfortable, Judon does that, and it's just an X factor in the game.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like the Patriots have been quietly dominating for the past few games here, like Bill Belichick likes to do in the later half of the season. And I think Judon is a huge part of that. He's got 10.5 sacks, 24 tackles. You know, that kind of stuff really can help you out and get you to where you need to be. And I think that's what's been happening.
Yeah, and it's just his overall talent is notches above everyone else. And it's just like the same thing with the Cowboys and all these other teams. If you're a good player on a team that likes to be hated on in the world, you're not going to get the respect you deserve, and he deserves the respect. You know, I don't like to see him, you know, take down Baker, throw him to the ground, you know, injure his partially torn labrum like he did last week. But, you know, he's been doing that to quarterbacks all season long. So, you know, for the future schedule, you got to watch out for Matt Judon, because Matt Judon has a chance to win DPOY over TJ Watt and Myles Garrett, 2 players that came into the season as the top 3 candidates. Now Matthew Judon has, you know, snuck his way into the conversation.
Well, Kayla, who do you have for your underrated player?
For my underrated player, I have DeAndre Swift, running back for the Lions, which I think the reason why he's underrated, where you said that a team that's hated gets overlooked, a team that just sucks.
Yeah.
Players get overlooked so easily, but DeAndre Swift is an absolutely phenomenal running back, and he's carrying the Lions right now, even though they still have not a single win for this season. I mean, Hannah, what do you think of him?
I mean, at least they haven't lost every game. They've tied 1. But yeah, I mean, they're struggling. Anyone on this Lions team is going to be overlooked right now, I think.
And at only 22 years old, he has over 100 passing yards or rushing yards, in the consecutive games. So I think he makes an impressive stance for his future in the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. I think he only has 2 touchdowns on the season, but that's what being on the Lions team is going to get you. And if anyone is proving what the Lions can do to you, it's Matt Stafford now that he's in LA. So, I mean, I feel like, you know, we can't judge a Lion. What do you think about that, Jeff?
I totally agree with Kayla, and the reason why he's so good right now is because he's the only offensive weapon. I mean, besides Jamal Williams, the second running back on the team, there's nobody else on the Lions that scares you. Like, oh, you need to watch that guy. You need a game plan for that guy. You know, coming into this week for my Browns, we're like, look at Mr. DeAndre Swift, because even with a decompressed O-line like he has, like his O-line's not that good. I mean, he has the stud rookie right now on his squad, but there's nobody else on the offensive line that's getting a push. He's just breaking tackles and taking it for yards. He has electric speed. He has a dominant type of like form. He runs with his head up and wants to like lower his head into you every time you want to tackle him. And it's a scary player to go for, especially when your coach is talking about ripping players' heads off. It's like you have him and then you have DeAndre Swift. It's like, okay, I'm like, they just want to beat you down right now because they have no talent on the offensive side.
Yeah. He finds a way. That's what I think is most impressive about him. Like, no matter what, he's going to find a way, make the touchdown, whatever he has to do. Hannah Jo, I want to go to your underrated.
Underrated. So I have, and Grant Wheeler, my good friend, will like this. I have Jonathan Taylor. He was so impressive yesterday. 5 touchdowns. He's got 13 touchdowns on the season, 1,122 yards. And the line is really good at creating holes for him, but he's also really good at finding him. And my friend Alex Funderburke, again, reminds me that the running backs out of Wisconsin are constantly underrated. He's the 2020 pick for this Colts team, and this has been the season where he's really showed out. And I think he's the best running back, the best offensive weapon that this Colts has right now. Jeff, what do you think about him?
Oh, I mean, 204 total yards and 5 total touchdowns, that's dual threat. I mean, you can't get better than that. I mean, he's 3rd place in total of all time for fantasy points, and that's if you're counting like 1948 players from back then. So for current day, he's next to Alvin Kamara for one of the best fantasy performances ever, and that happened last year when Alvin Kamara played in Minnesota. So seeing him play against the best run defense in DVOA and the Bills and absolutely pound them to death it's scary because a couple weeks ago you're like the Colts. I mean,
I know.
I guess, but Jonathan Taylor's like, oh yeah, the Colts.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
the
show you who the
Colts.
Colts
Take
are.
it
You know.
seriously, yeah. Okay, so I know we were gonna start with my overrated, but I'm so ready for this. Kayla, tell us your overrated player.
I have to say Baker Mayfield. I apologize, Jeff, but when the man can't even go to an interview after the game, what do you have to say about that?
I mean, we're 2 weeks past his 132.6 passer rating, you know, the departure of OBJ. A lot of turmoil in Cleveland right now. And the Cleveland fan base sucks, you know. I honestly hate my fan base because we do not appreciate greatness. We went 1-31. 1-31. We had Cody Kessler throwing the football on our team. We had a broken down RG3 come to our team try to save us, and then we have Baker Mayfield, a first-round pick, obviously, or the first pick in the whole draft. I mean, obviously he's not a star player like a Lamar Jackson, like a Justin Herbert, like a Patrick Mahomes, but he has so much heart. And you see he has a partially torn labrum.
That's what I was going to bring up. He's injured. He's injured right now.
It's insane because he injured his ACL last week. He has a partially torn labrum. I don't know what Kevin Stefanski's doing. I don't know what type of point he's trying to prove, but I think that Baker just wants to go out there and prove to everyone that, hey, I'm tough. I'm mentally tough. You know, he has Juice Jarvis Landry coming out every week, has a partially torn leg, and like, I don't know. It's sad because Cleveland doesn't deserve Baker. We don't deserve Baker. But I understand.
I will have to say though, heart doesn't really win you Super Bowls. Talent might do that. And his talent in the Progressive commercials might be a little better than his talent on the field, in my opinion, Jeff.
Look, that is a really good. Look, that's a solid statement.
He's really good in those commercials.
He's great. No, he's got a career ahead of him in commercials. Not movies, maybe not good enough for
Look,
that. But
to take a team from 131 and then 2 years pass, finally have a head coach like Kevin Stefanski to be with you for 2 years. You know, taking us 11-5 into the playoffs, beating the Steelers 2 times in a week. I forgive Baker. I don't mind him playing injured, but it's injury. You can see. Look at the Chiefs game. Look at the Chargers game. Before he got absolutely crumpled by J.J. Watt, you know, before he tore his labrum, he was looking electric. We're having shootouts. Our problem was our defense. Now it's Baker Mayfield. And
look, is he a good, decent quarterback? Probably overall, but the Browns haven't been that much better since he came, in my opinion. I wish we could go into this more, but we do not have any more time left. Thank you so much for joining us, Jeff. Thank you, Hannah, as always. And we will see you guys next Friday on a different day this week for our last show of the season.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back, okay? Always locked in, I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.